Schalke 04 is gonna be a tougher opponent. They showed very good matches. I mean, not very good matches, but they showed that they are ready to put you into the mid game, into the late game, being not really behind, contesting objectives. That's what they actually are better now than before. But I'm still confident that we're gonna beat them. Like I said, we only lost one game against teams that are all in the top 3. So yeah, only the top 3 are scary teams.
There we go, Hans. Sama, ahead of this huge clash of Rogue versus Schalke 04, as I welcome you back to the expert desk. This is a very important game for Rogue. We talked about them yesterday as being the main contender for that 4th spot going into the playoffs, but since then, a lot has changed.
Yeah, I think that after yesterday's performance, many eyes are now on Rogue and questioning, will they actually be able to beat Schalke? Now, something that you did mention in rehearsals at Shocks was that it's only one game. How much weight can we put on this single game? But you've got to think about the context in which they're playing, and they are playing in a different environment. The situation leads them to a different circumstance that they would normally find themselves in if they're going to play this hyper-aggressive style where they're missing their skill shots, their execution isn't up to par, and they're drafting compositions that don't really make a huge amount of sense. Then how can we expect this team to be really contesting for that 4th place spot?
I mean, honestly, it was just so surprising because I felt like they just did not play good League of Legends in many aspects at all yesterday. Like, you look at the individual level, Larssen couldn't land an ultimate, Inspired on the Sejuani couldn't land an ultimate. Like, there were so many mechanical blunders, and then when it came to the team-wide decision-making, that also didn't hit the mark. They were constantly over-forcing for fights that SK was always able to turn around on them and punish them for.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I like to be positive and say it was an off day, right? Then we know that now it is for all the marbles, and Schalke certainly is no slouch, as we have seen in recent games. What is peak Rogue performance? What do you want to see, and what are they capable of showing?
Well, I think the reason why many analysts put Rogue as a clear number 4 is that when you look across the board, this roster does have very talented players. Typically, when they win through the split, it's largely due to their individual prowess. Larssen is so consistent in his 1v1 laning that he often comes out in CS advantages in matchups that he shouldn't be winning. The bot lane 2v2 is very strong just because of how mechanically skilled they are, and you know that Inspired can play through any single lane. So on paper, this roster should be able to do pretty much anything that the top 3 can do without the same level of versatility or aggression, I would say. But that's a large part of why they've been able to beat many of the teams below them, which is why on paper you put them as the favorites against Schalke.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they're the consistent team, right? And that's why everyone was like, oh, the safe bet is probably to put them in 4th, but maybe a team like MAD could have a higher peak. Well, when you then lose and come out and have a pretty dreadful showing against one of our bottom teams in the LEC, that's where the doubts start to enter my mind when we're just 1 week away from playoffs.
Yeah, and just to be clear here, they don't have their destiny in their own hands anymore, but they definitely need to win against Schalke to keep their hopes alive. And let's talk about that Schalke 04. They've proven themselves a threat to the top teams and actually anyone in the league in the last couple of weeks. That's quite the turnaround. And yeah, it's a bit bitter because they're not going to playoffs, but I still think we have to commend what they've shown in the last couple of weeks.
You absolutely do. I mean, this team, it's sad because it feels like they they were off to their start of the split 4 weeks late, 4 weeks behind all the other teams, but they really have started to turn things around. I think they made some clear upgrades across a couple of positions in their roster, and their bot lane has looked absolutely fantastic. In the game against G2 yesterday, I thought that Dreams played out of his mind on the Nautilus, constantly finding all of these picks, was a huge driving force why they were able to sort of like quell the bleeding and almost come back in that game.
And Innaxe is a player that we have to mention as well. I think that he's been so consistent and has been getting better and better week on week. And when you talk about Dreams' performance, when the bot lane is playing well, this is one of the key areas that you need to be performing well, especially against the likes of Rogue. Hans and Vander is no easy bot lane to be able to push around, and if you can bring a certain level of consistency to your gameplay, it makes the execution all the more easier. Now the big question mark will be Gilius. He's back on the roster for this week. He had a pretty okay game game against G2, obviously coming back onto the LEC to play against G2 in your first game, always going to be challenging, but against Inspired, who's been a little shaky, we'll have to see what he can throw out against the young jungler today.
Yeah, that is a great point. Of course, Gilius will always want to prove himself when he gets a chance to be again on that LEC stage. And for Rogue, it would be, a far cry from them getting into the playoffs just in summer. We thought they would go from strength to strength, but it hasn't been that so far. Can they look to win this game versus Schalke and keep themselves in the race for fourth? We will see. As the saying goes, nothing is scarier than a team with nothing to lose. So watch out for Schalke.
That's definitely the case. Nothing is scarier than a team with nothing to lose. And Rogue, they have a fair amount to lose. If they lose this game to Schalke right now, they are locked into 6th place. When you look at the teams they are competing with in the race for 4th, in Misfits and Mad Lions, both of whom with fairly difficult opponents, actually scratch that, very difficult opponents, I want to see what Rogue can do. I want to believe in this roster. I was all aboard the Rogue hype train up until about 3 weeks ago, and then I started to tear up my tickets and get very nervous about being on the train because I don't know where it's going, and I'm hoping it is not to crash in Burnsville.
I hope so too, honestly. I think Rogue has shown a lot of growth and promise, especially that weekend when they beat Mad Lions, and then they had the rough one where they faced the top end of the table with Fnatic and G2, which is alright to lose to, but now they're on a 3-lose streak and they need to bounce back here today against Schalke.
Yeah, they really do. 9 wins, 8 losses. The teams above them in this race for 4th already are at 10. We jump into the draft immediately, and I'm quite excited about this game, Yamato. Like, Schalke have been, going from strength to strength. Unfortunately, they, started growing too late in the split. That accrued too many losses. And obviously, we've seen a few roster swaps. So let's catch up on the draft quickly. Gragas, Ornn, Ziggs, Senna, Syndra, Kalista, and a first pick of Felios. Still seeing a lot of priority on this champion despite the nerfs.
Yeah, it seems like Rogue is one of the few teams that definitely locked it in. We saw it, yesterday. I like the Ziggs ban targeted towards Schalke. I think Aphelios is still a fine champion. Early lane phase is not as oppressive. I think Misfortune is going to have the better end of the stick early on in the lane phase, but then later Aphelios is still Aphelios. Still, a lot of crazy things can happen with the turrets, and probably I wouldn't be surprised if Aphelios gets picked more and more.
Okay, so let's see then. In terms of the remainder of the draft, it's going to be the Pantheon locked in, Misfits, Misfortune rather, as well as the Nautilus. And that Braum, I think, is just a couple seconds away from being locked in. Are you surprised by anything here? And what would you like to see from Schalke in the next phase?
I like the Pantheon. I was hoping that Innaxe would show us more Heimerdinger and Ziggs stuff. They went for the basic ones. I think right now I'm liking what Schalke showed more. I know that Braum is this classic pick into Misfortune to block the ultimate, but right now I think the lane phase is going to be better for Schalke. I think Rogue's lane phase and bottom side is something that is a strength for them, and Misfortune Misfortune Nautilus should have prior them.
Okay, I would have liked the Talia. I really like seeing Talia in pro play. It's going to be a swap way to something a little bit safe, a little bit reliable. Gilius on Sejuani. What do you make of seeing Gilius back on the roster?
He's going back to the trusty Sejuani. He's already drawing Gragas bans. I remember working with Gilius. He was always like, I can only shot call if I'm playing tanks. So this is the trend he's going for. It. Locking in a tank, do some shot calling action. Sejuani is something that always works. You're going to most likely jungle against the Pantheon. Sure, Pantheon can go top, can go mid. Most likely he's going to go jungle, and I think Sejuani is fine into it, just fine.
Okay. What I love about shoutcasting without actually being able to see you, Yamato, is I can hear the smile in your voice. So I set that question up, and I just hear the grin. I start to think about where your mind is pondering, what direction it's going to go, and it's a new skill set to learn, which is quite fun.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of fun stories with Gilius that I will never forget. He's quite the character and the personality. It's hard not to love him.
Goes back a long time. Love him or love to hate him. Either way,
yes.
Love is in the sentence, right? Well, look,
sure.
Let's take a look at the next two bans. LeBlanc and Echo, taken away from Schalke's side. Renekton is the first one, and I'm waiting to see what the next option is going to be. So what is still open? And give me some predictions on what you'd like to see, these teams drafting.
I think Schalke is just aiming to fourth pick mid lane here, put something safe for Abbedagge. Usually the Azir look to last pick top lane because they have the Sejuani synergy. I think usually if you're banning LeBlanc and Echo on red side means that you're just looking in Azir on fourth, unless Abbedagge has prepared some VLICKR action maybe for us. I think Azir is tougher to kind of pin down in terms of finding counters because Azir is so mobile. Not like VLICKR, he can maybe lose to a Cassidy and something like that. I think Azir is just a staple Abbedagge pick, so it's an easy prediction to make. While Rogue, I think most of the time we see a lot of mages for Larssen, but he's been branching out towards those assassins. The Irelia gets locked in. I know it's a Finn special.
Is he going to play it?
Played yesterday.
Oh, so Corki mid, Irelia top. Yes.
Okay. Dangerous to blind Irelia top. I want Odoamne to look in Darius now and just show him where the floor is.
Oh, Odoamne versus Finn, the old versus the new. I did a segment on Odoamne a couple of weeks back where, Odoamne has always been one of those top laners that is respected, that is at times feared. And Jax? Are you kidding? Okay, Jax versus Irelia. What do you think?
Honestly, I think just because Jax has Sejuani jungle, I think he's favored here. It's definitely a skill matchup, and Irelia can, inside of a wave, dodge the E of Jax very easily. Without minions, I think Jax wins. And I think it's all about, how the jungles interact with this. And I think Jax having Sejuani on his side is going to mean so much. But usually with these type of matchups, I think the reason we're both excited is because it usually just goes one way. One person gets ahead and it just snowballs through the roof. So it's all about that early game movement. If TPs happen, if Corki packages happen there to impact it, some early ganks, some creative pathings, maybe level 2 from Pantheon, it can get very crazy very, very fast.
Okay, give me just 1 second. I have a feeling. Oh my god, yes. Okay, so Yamato Cannon, play a game with me. What is Odoamne's win rate on Jax top?
68.33%.
You gotta go higher, my man.
Gotta go higher, 75.
You gotta go higher, my man.
$100.
$100%. Odoamne Jax. Now, admittedly, he's played one LEC game. So, one win, one game, right? Still counts. But anyways, I'm going to come back to the stats in just a moment. I can make that stat a little bit more impressive, Yamato.
Okay.
Odoamne has played 3 additional Jax games in Challenger. So you tell me how long ago that was, right? And he won all of them as well. So 4 games played, 1 at the LEC level, 3 at the Challenger level, and all of them are victories. So statistically speaking, Odoamne has the best shot at a victory this game on this champion.
I'm in love with Jax. Ever since I read the Jax lore where Ikathia once stood, I'm in love with this champion. Not so often you get to see it in the meta because, Irelia doesn't get blind picked that often, but I love me some Jax. How do you feel about Jax, Trevor? You love it?
Oh, beyond a shadow of a doubt. If the observers are listening, and I have confidence they are, when Odoamne gets a chance to just hit a turret alone, hopefully split pushing, hopefully with no other characters around, no other champions, no minions. I just want to hear that thwack, thwack, thwack against the turret. It is the #1 best sound effect in the game, and the only thing that comes close is Warwick hitting a turret.
You're giving me some lo-fi beats ideas here. I'm just going to pull up a Warwick and some Jax punching and just make a YouTube channel of my own and just play some music.
If you follow that up with some ASMR, Yamato Cannon, I'd subscribe. I'd listen to that.
Today on Radio Yamato Cannon, we've got Jax punching a turret.
The whack. But now, a little bit more seriously, at what point do you want to see Jax going aggressive into the Irelia? It's not a matchup we see all too often. So break down some levels, and when do you think Gilius or Inspired want to come visit?
It's a bit trickier here because both junglers did in fact start without without a leash. So both players are in a position here where they don't know the state of the jungler. Inspire starting the Wolves and doing the Jankos pathing, and Gilius looking for level 3 hopefully here after blue into Gromp and then pathing into topside. It's all about just waiting for the junglers. Usually Jax has early prior because of how his E works. Basically he can just walk up to Irelia, punch her, take the aggro of the minions and load up his counter-strike to do even more damage, and then on the bounce is where Irelia is going to win again because she has 5 stacks on her passive. So it's all about how I want to say the river flows, but how the minion wave flows back and forth. When one person is slow pushing, the other one has to back off, and then it's all about the junglers impacting at the right time.
Yeah, definitely the case. I mean, look at this with minion support. Odoamne just hits level 3. He gets pushed back exactly as you broke down, Yamato. And as far as the junglers are concerned, they're about to meet head-to-head in the eastern quadrant of the map, bottom right. And before that, Inspired's now made his way up top. Flash is available for Abbedagge. Larssen starts firing off his Gatling gun. And that's going to be a pretty easy slide and glide from Abbedagge to escape.
Usually when you play these boring matchups, Azir Corki in the mid lane, you're very happy when your jungler does a drive-by because it costs so much mana for Azir to do his combo to get away, but it just seems like, you know, Abbedagge is actually destroying Larssen here in the 1v1 matchup because he's so far ahead on HP and mana, and it's just a wonderful state of the lane here for Abbedagge. So I think he's going to build this into an advantage because Larssen is kind of in trouble.
Both of them running the teleport in the mid lane. Inspired, the drive-by has now gone for round 2, but there was no threat at all in Abbedagge. Larssen definitely did not want to follow into those Sand Soldier autos. But I like seeing the fact that Vander is now left the lane as well, started to back away just to potentially jump in if any shenanigans were afoot. But nothing happened just yet, Yamato.
It's so important here because Corki is going to burn his TP, have a massive cooldown, and if Abbedagge can save his, that is going to mean so much for all these matchups we talked about with the bottom side and top side. If Azir can keep his TP, he's super happy because the cooldown of TP does go down with levels. So this is something to pay attention to. Corki TP cooldown is around, I don't know, like 380 seconds, which is forever, honestly, forever. That's like 10 minutes into the game is going to be back. It's quite wild.
Yeah, really, really important. And we need to see what impact it has, because as it stands, Counter-Strike from Odo comes down. Really good trade. Leap Strike into that Empower. Ooh. And there we go. Oh! Goodbye! Finn just got blown up.
Holy moly. There we go. First jungle interaction. Gilius very quick with the Q flash. Very wild there that Finn went aggressive on the wave. He was playing around Pantheon's timer, but Gilius read that play like a book, and he just was there first. Beautiful.
Well, nicely done. It was Gilius that picked up the kill, not the Jax. So if there is a silver lining to look for, maybe that's one of them. But Schalke, 600 gold up, a bunch of long swords and Doran's blades picked up across the map. I mean, there's so many long swords in this game right now. As everyone's just going to start to itemize for the next fight. And look at this, Gilius, he's back for more.
He's sitting on a ward though, so he's going to waste a bit of time. Finn is just going to keep the freeze and wait for Pantheon, but 2v2, I think Schalke is going to win pretty hard, very easily.
Good stun from Finn. There goes the engage. Schalke already with the advantage. Flash forward, flash away from Finn. Oh. Finn manages to get the kill into Gilius. Now Odoamne and Inspired, they may go toe-to-toe. Ends up being a 1-for-1.
This is a disaster though for the Irelia because the wave is slow pushing into the Jax. So here Jax is going to freeze, he's going to get level advantage, and all of a sudden this matchup that is so explosive, this 1-for-1 is heavily in favor of Schalke 04.
Oh my word, and Odo's also just got access to that Grandmaster's Might. Yes, the sound effect I wanted to hear. He's got the blue buff as well, so that's going to help out even more. This is scary. Remember, if Rogue lose this game, they are locked into 6th place in that do-or-die match in round 1 of the playoffs, which is next Friday. And here's a replay of the 2v2.
So it's funny how both junglers get spotted. I didn't realize Inspire got spotted on the ward, but it's also crazy that Rogue are heading into this 2v2. Jax is so tanky here. He can just activate E and then the stun lands, and then the synergy between the Sejuani and Jax is so good. And then a 1-for-1 is always going to be in favor of the team that actually kills the top laner. Here, Irelia dies, her wave is slow pushing, no level 6, so there was no advantage with the experience because of what happened before. And Odoamne is honestly in a super strong state because he can just itemize armor. And armor is going to be so good against the entire composition of Rogue because the Ninja Tabai works against all of them. And Irelia needs to itemize maybe Mercury because of the Sejuani. The Azi is going to have a lot of damage. The Nautilus is going to have a lot of damage. So it's very difficult for Irelia to commit to any items as heavily as Jax does. So Jax in a very strong position. If someone told me, gun to my head, who's going to win this game, I'm heavily favoring Schalke.
Well, that's a bold statement, Yamato, at 7 minutes, and Rogue, they're not going to set up any sort of dive, but I understand why. Jax 1-0-1, got the Phage, got a small CS advantage, has had, honestly, very good support from Gilius in the top lane, and he's just set up in a great position, so the wave is now going to push towards Finn. He's paying a lot of respect, sitting all the way back. And we haven't looked too much across the rest of the map. Hansama, small CS advantage in that bottom lane. But there's a pretty sizable wave being pushed towards Innaxe. So he should be able to catch up fairly soon. I take that back. I read the minimap wrong. So still, 8 CS down, a wave and a half.
Alright. Well, luckily it's not going to matter for Schalke. The bot lane is just there to exist. I'm happy that Rogue are managing to find Prio in this matchup. Failure scales super well, so there's going to be a point in time in the game where it's going to matter. But now, for me, I'm thinking back about the drive-bys we spoke about. Pantheon was showing so much on the mid-wave, and Gilius, as you mentioned, has had quite a wonderful game. If Sejuani is even in a game at 8 minutes, level 6, she is super happy, and Gilius has had quite a fine performance. We were talking about those tanks. Gilius on tanks, baby.
And it works out. And not only is Sejuani in this did he smite that as well?
Yeah.
Cheeky man. Walks in, takes the Grom. And yeah, like you said, not only is he even on levels, even on CS, has a kill and assist to his name, got a Jax ahead, and we've got that traditional 8-minute swap. So what does Odoamne and the rest of Schalke want to do in this scenario? Hansama and Vander marginally ahead of their opposite numbers. They've got support from Inspired, and we've got ourselves a fight on the cards.
I think looking at items, definitely Schalke can be strong here, especially when Larsen's package will wear off. He's been having it for quite some time. That was the advantage they had for the fight. Jax is going to go back bottom and really has some prio. If they can use that advantage to maybe 4v5, then maybe. But I think whoever starts the Rift Herald is going to be kind of at a disadvantageous position.
Okay, Rogue, they will ping the Herald and then back away. I noticed that Finn has picked up the Ninja Tabi, as has Odoamne, neither of whom have their teleports available. You mentioned earlier how long those cooldown timers are, starting to become available in the next minute to 2 minutes, pretty much across the board. And as you said, Schalke sitting very comfortable. They've got some fantastic scaling on their sides and some fantastic team fighting. So, expect them to hold steady for the next little while.
It's also a question of how much Schalke can use the advantage on Jax, because I like the saying, gold begets gold. Usually when you look at advantages, Jax between Irelia, it might look minimal here, but the 500 Gs is going to add up to something else. Odoamne is going to hopefully be able to even build this into something bigger, maybe even die with Sejuani later when Rift Herald is not on the table. We'll have to see how it progresses throughout the game.
Yeah, it will definitely be the case. And like you said, when you have that advantage, you can snowball the lead. I mentioned scaling. Who do you think has got better scaling? Which side?
Honestly, I think...
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
I have to say Schalke and Ulfir, because of how easy it is for them to itemize armor. Corki is the solo magic damage here, but Ninja Tabi is just too much value against this team. Oh, fight!
That absolutely is the case. Bullet time comes down. The Unbreakable does a lot to block it. Rift Herald still for the taking, will finally get secured there by Schalke. Inspired goes down as the Moonlight Vigil doesn't do enough. The Abbedagge escapes with his life, and Dreams will sacrifice himself. That was a very big team fight while that's going on. Odo, flash. One more auto. Hit him with the fishing rod! And he does. Odo gets the solo.
Very nice. Gold begets gold. We have the snowball for Jax. It is looking quite bright there, but once again, the team that begins the Rift Herald is always going to be at a worse position. When you have carries like the Corki and the Aphelios and Azir, it's all about, facing the enemy face first, making them run into you in a scenario where you are controlling everything, basically on The mid lane, for example, on the bottom side, when you know where the enemy is coming from, it's much easier for you. But there, Azir was in an awkward spot where he's kind of getting sandwiched by the wall and also the enemies. So that's why the fight looked very awkward there for Schalke. It's all about making sure that you keep a steady space, because in the end, this is a way to throw the game. Schalke starting the Rift Herald as we spoke about, Corki coming from the flank here, and you can notice this is not the position that Misfortune and Azir want to be in. They're kind of getting flanked and they're getting poked down. Even though Schalke can be stronger on paper here because of the strength of the Sejuani ult, they just lose out the fight because of the position they put themselves in. And then the continuation, the fight was beautiful. Look at that, Trevor.
I love that Oda just stood outside the Vanguard's edge and didn't move. Just like, come on, stand here, bro. I dare you. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to the observers. They gave me the slow-mo zoom in on Jax hitting a tower over at Yamato Cannon's ASMR and Lo-Fi Jax Hits Turret radio station.
I love it. I might need the copywriter right now. Call him my lawyer.
Oh, that would be awesome. Actually, it would be a lot of fun. But I mean, okay, Schalke are technically behind in gold, but we feel like they're a little scarier, and this might be balanced out as Inspired jumps in, instantly flashes to the side. Bullet time comes up, it is unblockable. Spider Nautilus, Dreams pulls himself to safety, and it is Larssen that picks up the kill. He's 2-0. Hans Summer is a 30 CS advantage. So you've got one fed Corki, one farmed Aphelios versus a fed and farmed Jax. This is getting interesting. Emperor's Divide comes down and Finn will get taken out. Yeah, the kill is donated to Innaxe, so Schalke 4-3 in kills.
Yeah, the key thing there is that Schalke, we spoke about the Rift Herald before, when you have the Rift, having a map divided state is always going to be better for you because you have more tempo. The Rift Herald kind of ravages turrets. Schalke secured the first turret gold and also the second turret gold on the bottom side, funneling more money into the Jax. Jax is going to be an absolute menace, and if he continues to snowball, there's going to be a world where he actually is able to dive the Irelia potentially on side. But the key thing here is that Rogue, with Larssen being so fed, maybe he's the person that is going to match the Jax. Maybe with that Valkyrie he's going to be able to get away, and all that Jax pressure is not going to happen. So it's important to look at how these TPs are going to interact with the game, because I think sending Corki into the Jax is the only solution you have right now.
I'm going to give a quick shoutcaster lesson to anyone listening at home. Did anyone catch the word usage that Yamato Cannon used when discussing Larssen's Corki? He said, maybe Larssen is going to be the one. What that tells me is while in theory that could happen, Yamato does not believe that it will happen. And Odo's just picked up the Triforce. He's got the 20 CS advantage. Do you think that's fair to call out Yamato?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think there's a world where it happens, but there's a world where it doesn't as well. So I think we struck the balance quite neatly there.
Oh, there we go.
Abbedagge is going to be able to escape with his life, and I'm trying to take a look. By the way, Odo not only has the item advantage, he's got a 2-level advantage, and I'm going to stop just to listen to the dulcet sounds of Jax. And zoom in again, observers. One more time. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Odoamne taking the third tower of the game. Oh, I'm so in love with our observer team. But, like, everybody's played that solo queue game where Jax just takes over and can at some point 1v5. It feels like we're getting to that point.
Honestly, they should be happy there's no Spirit of Sodium. We have a dive going on, should be easy, but the TP's coming in. Corki.
Oh my word. Well, the thing is, Finn had a fantastic stun. That flawless duet was in fact flawless, but it cannot get through the multiple stuns, the damage. And now all of a sudden, Larssen, the one, lever that Rogue could have twisted, his TP's on cooldown.
Yeah, it's tricky. The cooldown is definitely lower at this point in time because of level 12, but still, the TP is going to be so important, and we saw the interaction there with the itemization. Having Ninja Tabai against, of course, Sejuani and Jax is quite rough. Sure, you can get Tenacity and Runes, but you want even more of it because the stun lock is going to be there. And now, the kind of itemization that we spoke about is going to begin to kick in. The Ninja Tabai value, the armor value in general, maybe Randuin's Omen later is going to be absolutely massive because Rogue have 3 champions that rely heavily on crit. So maybe third item random Zombie for Jax is going to be absolutely huge, and all of a sudden Schalke is going to reach a point in time where they're just unkillable, and then you need to just stop itemizing Last Whisper, and that's always awkward when you need to do so early on in the game, because Rogue's composition really AD heavy.
Oh my word, it is indeed. I mean, Blade of the Rune King is being worked on here by Odo. Level 12 to level 10. Schalke, null fear. They definitely have been a threat. We have actually been singing their praise for several weeks. Their scoreline does not reflect, honestly, their performance on the Rift. There's been a few pieces missing, especially in the middle to second half of the split, which just held them back from picking up wins. But they found the gears that worked, and they're on the verge of forcing Rogue to take 6th position if they can continue this lead. I sound quite definitive, but it's just because I'm so much in belief of this, Jax.
Honestly, it's so wild to think of it. We were predicting this always on the analyst desk and on the cast, like, oh, Schalke can play spoiler, and everything kind of lines up perfectly for this game. Rogue needs to put everything on the line. They need to think of something clever in order to figure out this puzzle of the game. But right now, definitely Schalke look poised to win this out, because they have 2 breaks advantage, Jax is scaling, Aze is also super happy, and their composition has such an easy time itemizing. The only kind of plus side for Rogue is that they have good synergy with Braum, so if Vander can apply his stun to maybe every target on Schalke, then maybe the teamfights can work in their favor somehow. But I just, Tabi Ninja is just so OP. The reason I call it Tabi Ninja, I can mention, is because Joko always called it Tabi Ninja, so it's just stuck with me, Tabi Ninja.
That's it. Okay, the Tabi Ninja. I'll do my best to remember that one and keep it up. Yamato, so I've got pretty awful memory, but when we were on Euphoria with Finn, didn't he have a pretty impassionate rant about being like an Irelia one trick and how he loves Irelia, and then he blind picks Irelia, and then he goes 1-5 on Irelia. So what does that mean to you?
Oh, so he's gonna say Sejuani is just too OP, because Sejuani did some good moves. I think Odoamne managed the wave well, and I think Rogue kind of 2v2'd in a really wrong way. I think that's Finn's excuse. Top lane excuses.
Yeah, there's the Sejuani again. Flawless duet, and Finn is just looking for the farm. Vanguard's Edge will buy a few seconds, and that's pretty good mechanics, but you can't outrun the CC chain. 2-0-3 for Odoamne. 3-1-2 for Gilius. It's still only 1,000 gold lead, but it feels a lot more. And again, we're going to center eyes on Larssen and Hans Summer, and for Rogue, this is one of our playoff contenders. This could be our 6th place playoff contender. Some big question marks to solve going into playoffs, which start next Friday.
That's the question of Rogue facing at the top end of the bracket, and now in their last 4 games, they've kind of looked completely shook. If they lose this one, it's a 4-game lose streak, and then all of a sudden that faith in the Rogue playoffs race, and them beating Mad Lions and Misfits begins to dwindle more and more. Everything starts here today. That 4th place position, getting some warm-up for the best of 5s, is going to matter so much for this Rogue lineup, because the last time, I just remember that Corki package flying straight into the fountain. Those things maybe can get prevented if you play a couple of more best of 5s.
It's so true. I had forgotten about that until you just mentioned it. But look at this. Schalke get another. Innaxe has already picked up the kill. Odoamne is chasing. Blade of the Rune King is completed. Gilius is sitting on a Warmog's armor, by the way. 2 more kills to Schalke. 2,000 gold in the lead. There's a Baron available for them. And Schalke, they turn and they look like they're going to burn this one.
This is going to be super quick. Blade Rune King Jax has been buffed as well, applying Sejuani E super fast. Inspired needs to look for a steal. That's the only hope here. He has a flash, he has the ultimate to get in the pit, but he's 1 level disadvantage.
Yeah, he really is. The dredge line is going to connect onto Larssen, and that's a flash from Odo. Style points using the counter strike to headshot Larsen's Corki. Once again, its backup stays within the Vanguard's edge. And Odoamne has just styled on Rogue with the help of Gilius. Baron is secured, and Schalke, null fear, are in absolute control.
What is going on with Rogue? They had a very rough early game, and Schalke just transferred so well. Odoamne now smurfing on this Jax. We mentioned how Ninja Tabai is so good against Rogue's composition. Talk about the counter-strike as well. The dodging of every auto-attack of Rogue is also massive. It's just the best 5th pick they could have hoped for ever.
Yeah, it really is. There we go. Glacial Prison comes down. Hans Summer flashes for his life. Manages to get one auto off before he's taken down. Teleport comes out from Larssen. He immediately Valkyries away. Killing spree now for Innaxe, who's 3-0-3, by the way. Snuck his way up and pushes into the base. I think if Rogue lose this game, there'll be no tiebreakers at the end of the day. Rogue will be locked into 6th place. And then that battle for 4th between Mad and Misfits gets real spicy. But we've got to see what Schalke can do to finish this one out.
Honestly, I'm trying to think of ways of Rogue coming back, but it's just impossible. I need some LSD for that, man. Need some heavy hallucinations for that. It's just not going to happen. Schalke are going to close this game very, very easily.
Schalke are seeing the rainbow right now. It was Black Cleaver, by the way, for Odoamne. So he's gone Tabai, Blade of the Rune King, Cleaver. Just for style points. Innaxe must be sitting on a boatload of gold. He's just got an Essence Reaver. I wasn't expecting that, and you completely caught me off guard. So well played, Mr. Mendy.
It's wild. This misfortune has so much cash now, as you mentioned. Like, I think she's in a whole different tax bracket right now. Jesus. There we go, 3.8k. Holy moly. All that advantage we were talking about with Hans Sama is just gone.
Completely disappeared. Earth, Wind, and Water for Schalke. They're on Soul Point. They've got Baron for a couple more minutes. They've opened up 2 inhibitors. I mean, you know, I actually, if I'm going to be honest with you, I love seeing this, and I really like seeing teams stepping up, but it makes me mad. It makes me mad because I think to myself, where was this Schalke 4 weeks ago? And where was that SK 6 weeks ago? You know, when you see what the teams can do, I feel like I've been robbed of good games earlier in the split.
Yeah, we can only speculate, right? Like, the teams know what's going on the inside, but there's a variety of factors. Maybe the pressure going off, maybe the replacement will forgive them, maybe just playing online. There's so many different factors that might shape what a team is. Maybe Schalke just got some strategy together. Maybe all of a sudden the practice worked. Maybe they started meditating. There's a long list of assumptions that we can make.
And we'll never know.
We'll never know unless they tell us, I guess, in an interview.
I'm sure Odoamne will say something. He's very outspoken on many topics, and he's going to be outspoken about this one. Just want to remind you, Mr. Mevni, that about 30 minutes ago, I told you that Odoamne's Jax had a 100% win rate, 1 game in the LEC, 3 games in Challenger. He's about to make that 2 games in the LEC as he's pushing into the inhibitor.
Holy. So free, so free. It was just the best pick. It was a genius pick, really a blind pick. So cocky from Finn, and then the Sejuani Jax synergy, and just how the Counter-Strike works now with 40% CDR is just absolutely wild. Just take the 4v5. I mean, 2v4 right now. I think they can do it. Yeah. They can do it.
I think they
Show
can.
off a bit.
No ultimate on Gilius, though. No ultimate. That could be the thing. But what's going to be interesting to think about is, unless Rogue pulls some miracle, they are likely to drop out here. And that means they're going to face either Misfits or Mad Lions in round 1 of the playoffs. It's 5 plays 6. So they're in that losers bracket, do or die in the first round. And they are going to be watching with bated breath to see whether it's Mad Lions or Misfits, as both of them are playing Origin and then G2 respectively. So there's so much on the line, and there's so much to work through between now and next weekend. And all it does for me is it gives me more questions, more things to think about, that what we've seen from Mad, what we've seen from Rogue, and what we're going to see from both of them later today.
It's also so crazy to think about the fact that these last weeks and the last games have looked so rough. As Abbedagge gets caught, gets interrupted. You know, thinking about that 5v5 matchup, Misfits and Rogue both have looked like completely different teams these last weeks, so they have a lot of things to figure out so fast. Innaxe?
Yeah, Innaxe is going to be in some trouble here. The exhaust has done a lot of work. That exhaust saved his life. Good shout from Innaxe. And this will be able to be another kill. It's a double 504. Summon a spell choice, ladies and gentlemen, helping you out. Odo, Blade of the Rune King. Shoot that little bullet. He's going to chase down. Flash, Counter-Strike. Got one. Going to keep chasing for another. I think Odoamne has been playing a lot of Animal Crossing. He's spoken to Tom Nook. He's broken all the fishing rods, and he's using the golden rod to fish all the sharks out of the ocean. Rogue are likely going to be taken out here. I mean, 26 minutes in, and Odo, 807. This is the definition of showing off.
As it's always with these matchups, you know, Jax Irelia, it just snowballs into something so huge when you get an advantage. We predicted it, and Odoamne is huge.
Well, there we go. The Nexus turret is now being focused on. Odoamne uses the stopwatch. He manages to get out. Yes, save that perfect KDA. Become the KDA player I always wanted you to be. 8-0-7. Nexus turret will go down. This is to kill KDA. Odoamne stays alive for a few seconds. The spear in the butt takes him down. That is Inspired sending a message for all of Rogue. Sending a message that you may not take our top of the bracket spot. Oh, I messed that up. You will take our top of the bracket, but we will take your unkillable game. There's a few sacrificial kills on the back here as Schalke don't really care all too much. They've gone hunting. The Sun Disc is put up. I think the Winions may be able to finish this one as the Sand Soldiers over the wall are doing a lot of work. 26 kills, 27 minutes. And now the Nexus turret will just about be taken down. Finn and Inspired, well, the help of Larssen will try to do something, but it's not going to be enough. Schalke force Rogue to take 6th place in the regular season.
Wow. Just wow. Rogue, we're talking about how easy their path was to claiming that 4th place position, facing SK and then Schalke. Schalke looking like the more difficult opponent, losing to SK, coming into today. I wouldn't have imagined the state we're currently in because Rogue seem to have such a good track record against the teams below them. But then on the other side of the spectrum, Schalke no fear with this performance, understanding that 2v2 on top side, Jax and Sejuani playing it out very, very beautifully, getting a lead on Jax, and then Odoamne just snowballing away with all of that experience he has. It was very well done. I think it's crazy to think that Gilius just comes in. Odoamne and Gilius probably don't have that much synergy at all, and they kind of just executed way better than Rogue could ever do today.
And it's unbelievable. I feel like Rogue, we've had drafting questions of them a few times this split, and that blind pick Irelia got absolutely destroyed. So we'll get to talk a little bit more about Rogue later today. They have taken 6th place. And for your players of the game, head over to @LEC on Twitter, and your suggestions are Odoamne, Gilius, and Innaxe. It's a 2-horse race. Pick either Odo or Gilius, I've told you. We'll be right back with another game.
I made it to the finals in my rookie years, and I kind of took it for granted. Making it to a finals is really important for me.
Going now with the flank TP, flash away from B-Boy, but Afari chases him down with a slice of dice, and that's 2. They're going for the base race, Vedius. Can they do it? Mad so quick on it, they're pulling the trigger. Already the first Nexus tower's down. Oh, Schalke, not again!
I don't think we're favored against neither Fnatic or Origin, but I think we still have a chance to win against them, especially if they don't listen.